Can I get a refund if I booked a hotel stay, but I never showed up? This question, I want to answer it here for all of us because I fell exactly into this predicament. I want to share some of my learnings and what you can take away from here, and not just avoid this situation, but also how else you can maneuver it in general with this overall scenario. So imagine if you're me. And I basically planned an impromptu last minute trip where I booked a hotel night for tomorrow. And today's today in this situation. The issue is I accidentally booked it for literally today. And so the next day came and I thought, okay, we're going to show up to the hotel, check in just as planned. But clearly that wasn't the case because the reservation finished because I just incorrectly booked it. So I spoke to the hotel. I called them up right before getting there. And I was like, okay, so what are my options? They said, all right, let's take a look first of all at the system and all those type of process related things. And they basically said, okay, well, hey, there's something called night audit, which is basically when they audit like, hey, what actually happened that previous night. And so the booking that I made, it basically officially was a no-show. Usually when it's a no-show, it's going to depend on the hotel, the brand, and each individual kind of, let's just say, company has their policies. And in my situation, it was with IHG, Intercontinental Hotel Group, and I have platinum status with them through one of their credit cards offered through Chase. The point being, I was thinking like, okay, with status and all these things, there shouldn't be any issue whatsoever. And this is basically how it played out. The status part didn't really matter, basically. And the understanding was I'd be charged like normal. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want that to happen, clearly. And I was like, okay, what can be done about it? And in my situation, what happened was I was very happy to still stay at the same property. No, difference over there. So I basically said like, hey, can you just use basically what I spent for that initial night? Just we're going to roll it over for this night if that's possible. And the short answer was like, no, it's not possible. But what you can do is basically make a reservation, and the secondary one basically like paying twice in this situation. And then in the next morning, basically after the fact, yeah, I can speak to their general manager on property and hopefully they can waive the first reservation fee that I paid or do something about this, which, it seems kind of wishy-washy. We're like, okay, wait, so like I still may lose the first night. I may pay for the second night. And it's pretty much like nothing really changed. I can just have this quote unquote imaginary conversation and it could work out or it couldn't. So anyways, when I got to talk to the general manager the next day, the next morning, this is how it went. She reiterated to me that, hey, like it's a no-show. It is what it is. But because it was caught in the night audit that it was a no-show, that's when I would be basically billed/charged. And what she did basically was understood that, okay, well, I was still trying to make a reservation regardless. So she took care of it in this situation. But sometimes there's not someone who's there or happy to hear your situation and kind of adjust. And depending on the hotel brand or otherwise, it could be really tougher than not. So in my personal situation, it kind of worked out. It was okay. It was fine. But in general, what I was thinking about was like, okay, well, hey, what if this happened to anybody else? How else can you go around it or like save yourself? What I know is that most hotel companies and otherwise may have like a, hey, free cancellation within the first 24 hours of booking, or hey, free cancellation up to 72 hours before your actual arrival date. Those are just common policies. But let's say it's the day of, or let's say you're not in that window of grace per se, where you can just kind of not need to worry. And you're actually worried about, hey, am I going to get charged? Like, what do I do? This is where, let's say, the obvious answer is if you have any level of status or any type of credit card with one of the bigger kind of hotel brands like your Best Western, IHG, Marriott, Hilton, etc., they may have more leniency or kind of like a grace. For example, with me, with Hyatt, I'm currently Discover status, which is second from the top. And it's not like I stayed there so many nights, but officially I have the status through a status challenge that I did that's outside of the scope of this video. The point is, I basically got grace from them, which is like a courtesy, like waiving a fee, for example, right? But if it's the first time or the second time, what about that third or fourth time? Like what actually could happen then? In these situations, obviously, the initial thought for many may be, hey, let's, put a credit card dispute or, it's not fraud, but let me dispute this transaction because, hey, I genuinely just couldn't make it for whatever reason, right? Let's just say it was like a hurricane or something and you couldn't travel to whatever city it is. So the point here is you're basically disputing the fact of, hey, I was willing to pay, but because of XYZ reasons, I basically can't. And let's say the hotel policy, they don't want to hear it. They're like, sorry, you didn't show up. You're going to get charged. You basically have someone else that's kind of fighting for you. And there's no guarantee that this would work. But I will say that, you have someone else that's more not more, but exactly, let's say, legitimate and acting on your behalf and trying to do, let's say, the best optimal scenario for whatever you're looking for, which in this case is getting that transaction you're disputing off of quote unquote your statement or needing to pay it really is the goal here. The other important thing I want to call out is that we were really on the brink of just not going whatsoever because it was basically like, okay, well, if we don't really have a place to stay officially, unless I did that second reservation, coming back to our original plot point here, then what do you do, right? So we basically said, all right, well, we talked to them luckily, so we kind of knew, all right, how many hours we got to drive and it's all worth it. It's all, the good things, right? But it was really having the attention of actually still going versus trying to maneuver out of the first payment and then, not wanting to pay that second payment. There's usually a friction of, common sense would say, hey, if I paid once and I lost the money, I don't really want to pay a second time if there's no chance of the first one, it coming back to us. So the point here being that, okay, if you're willing to pay for the first round of payment anyhow, which is a given, situation, then you may need to wait a few days, for that refund to process and whatever. And if it's on your credit limit, if it was pending, it shouldn't really matter. But depending on the individual, that may differ person to person. So what I learned is, yes, you can basically get a refund, but technically in this situation, I still ended up showing up at the hotel, but it was the next day altogether. Now, if you ask me, hey, if it's a week passed or 10 days or somehow that type of clerical error on your side, I don't know, right? That's a real, fundamental issue. And the big, not cherry on top, but big call that I want to add here is that, having that status is great with IHG. And so when I was trying to call them on their, kind of hotel line that was dedicated for Platinum members, Platinum is just one rung below their Spire status, their highest level status. And I had to wait not just a few minutes. I was waiting, trying to get a hold of them. But the point is, they weren't really able to help when I really needed it because it was more last minute help in the situation. So I got in touch directly with the hotel and it worked out. But I can only imagine you're at a bigger, more, let's say, fancy hotel. And this was a Holiday Inn Express for our context, a 2-star hotel. And if you're in the middle of New York City at some famous property, obviously you want help, like a concierge service. But, you may not get that immediate front desk person so quickly. It's obviously going to depend in each and every different scenario. So if you know a better solution than kind of what I went through, or if there's just a different out of the box kind of answer, please comment below. It will help other folks and also inform me for my own future travels. So with that, if you came this far, you know how it is. Thanks for coming to the end, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. The Holiday Inn room we saw in this video, I'm not making a separate deep dive into, oh my gosh, this is what was in this room. But it was bigger than not if you've ever seen any other type of Holiday Inn room. Point being, it was because of status that we got this bigger room. And so having the IHG specific card, where just by paying the annual fee without even staying a night, you have literally their second from the top most tier status. And there's a lot more value if you're staying whether at the Holiday Inn type of tiers or a lot more expensive per night type of tiers within their whole portfolio. So I'll leave a video over here. Check it out. There's other Chase cards there too. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace again.